Welcome to Simcity Society, and we're going to be transforming this mild-mannered urban city to a very dystopian society, huh?
Right, what we've started with is kind of what, at first glance appears to be your classic modern megatropolis. If you look closely in it, you're going to see off in the distance some state housing blocks, and you're getting the feeling that this is kind of a little bit more maybe of a Soviet city than what you see at first glance. We've even got kind of a government center down here where we have ministries of thoughts and propaganda going out to condition our people, make them the productive members of society that we want them to be. At the opposite end of the city, we even have our cryogenic prisons. We're forcing our criminals into obedience. What we've developed here is a society where the goal is not to make people happy, but it's rather to make them work. So criminals are unhappy people. So we're going to rehabilitate them and force them into contentment. The secret police are going to come and drag them out into the workplaces, take them to the cryogenic prisons, freeze them for a while until they're ready to go back into the city and be productive members.
What makes societies around the world and throughout history kind of evolve is how they react and respond to problems. And the people in power at the time and their vision of the way their society should work. You go around this country and the way the police operate in LA is very different than the way the police operate in San Francisco or Seattle or Boston. And that kind of represents a social energy right there. An attitude of, we can correct this problem so it won't happen again, put more police out there. Criminals, you're going to spend some time in rehabilitation, and to the point where you realize, well, I might as well just go to work, but maybe you want to build something a little bit more peaceful, in which case you'd stay away from these types of buildings and build something using creativity or even devotion, and create a society that's not as productive, but doesn't spend its life being reconditioned by the government.
So these elements you're talking about, those are the real fundamental building blocks of the game then?
The real fundamental building blocks are societal energies and a very sensible interaction that allows the whole system to function, which is the role of homes where your Sims live in and where you get your Sims from, workplaces where they're going to go and produce simoleons for you, and also take the social energy and convert it into something. For example, a gulag consumes obedience, and a gulag is a place that can round up 20 Sims and condition them. So workplaces may enable the gulag to function. And venues, which are facilities, often entertainment facilities, but also the gulag is actually a venue. Venues are the places you put down so that your workers will continue to go to work the next day.
The basic social energies are power, wealth, knowledge, creativity, devotion, and obedience. And basically, they form a matrix that defines your society. So that you might say that the modern New York society is very much focused on wealth.
Clearly Wall Street.
Yeah, exactly, and has a lot of probably a lot of power as well going on. It's an industrial megalopolis. It might also have some creativity. I mean, you get a lot of museums in New York, places like that, and you have a lot of obedience in terms of a pretty strong police force.
Right.
You even have universities providing some knowledge. So kind of the modern city is in a lot of ways a very balanced city of different social energies going on. And then you can take that down and what we were building up with the Orwellian police state, which is a society that's very modern in a lot of ways, but we've forgone those museums, we've forgone the movie theaters. Instead, we are all about law enforcement. We're all about forcing the people to work, getting rid of the creativity and the artists in our society. We don't want anyone messing with what we tell them to believe in.
We can really play social engineer here.
Exactly. I could have built a city up where when my people started getting unhappy, instead of beating them down and forcing them to go to the work, I could have provided them with movie theaters. I could have provided them with more shopping malls so they could go buy some big screen TVs and take them home and watch them at night, making them happier and more willing to go back to work in the morning.
A lot of the buildings that you put down based on the social energies will spawn what we call special Sims. And these are agents that walk around your city and influence the Sims that are living and working in your city. So if you were to put down a drama school, which is a workplace, mimes may come out and street performers and entertain people who pass by, making them happy. It so happens in Orwellian society, the men in black and the secret police will round up your artists and get them off the street. So you can have social conflict. In order for the cities to really feel different and to play different and to look different, there has to be something more than just labels. And a lot of the societies, such as the Well Society, has workplaces that the Sims have to go to work every day of the week. In the Devotion Society, they may have to go to work every day, 5 days a week for only 3 hours a day. So in a Well Society where you have to be at work every day of the week, your only way that you can maintain that level of intensity is to be able to go to a mall, like Matt was saying, and pick up something that can last you a couple weeks with a big happiness boost. And those big, powerful happiness modifiers come at a social energy cost. They require you to have developed a production of wealth. So the way that you mix and match those is very much up to you, but we give you goals and destinations to aim for.
It seems one of the key components to conveying that is dynamic environment, everything being dynamic environments, dynamic descriptions. Talk about how you want to interact with the player and let them know what's going on in their city.
So assume the player starts with a vanilla city, and we have generic music playing and traditional city building lighting that you would expect. And as you start to head down into certain archetypes, say the Orwellian, well, the sky begins to get darker.
Yeah, we noticed particularly dramatic changes in just the lighting effects.
Exactly, and that's just one of many. The objects on the street lamps themselves will change. Buildings, textures will change. Some buildings will have different props, such as the jail will get security cameras on it in the Orwellian society.
Lamppost becomes candy canes
in the happy
ultimate
society.
Happy land society.
And so we have these, the game is very non-judgmental. And it doesn't say that one society is better than the other. It allows you to kind of create that society, and we try and give you as much of that ambiance as we can. And also, like I just said, have the gameplay itself support that. Have the gameplay really feel different, because the hours your Sims are working and the way that you're addressing any problems in the city is very different from city to city.
We know from watching people play The Sims that oftentimes they like to do little experiments on their Sims, putting them in difficult situations,
Yes.
shall we say. I mean, we all know the story about the people who've locked their Sims in rooms where they can't get out,
Sure.
and then that sort of thing. How would how would that spread? Can you show us an example too of how that might spread through a city by changing what's going on in the city? Then maybe starting so here we are. This which city form is this?
Well, so this is kind of the 19th century robber baron, Gilded Age city where all your people are living in the tenements and slums and working in your sweatshops, producing lots of money from you, but they're all very unhappy, as opposed to when you see the happiness indications for the Happy Land city where everyone was green and happy. Everyone here is just on the verge of unhappy.
I don't see any candy canes.
Exactly.
No candy canes.
Exactly.
No blue skies.
Yeah, you see a few happy people over here in kind of the nice area where the Rockefellers live.
That's where
This is the classic, these people are standing on the shoulders of everyone else in the city over here. They're living the good life.
Right, exactly. So
if you were going to spread a little, some sort of winds of change here, what might you play with?
Well, I might go in and I might go in and try and find some buildings, probably in the creativity set. Maybe I want to put down some venues to make these Sims a little happier. Because I've played through kind of the Happy Land previously, instead of just producing steel mills, I'm going to put down chocolate factories now for my Sims. So,
Willy Wonka approves.
Exactly. So we're going to try and transition over from the
We'll move it
robber
up.
baron profile over into more of the happier profile. So the chocolate factory, I can put down some venues that are like the clown school, the drama school, get some people out there on the streets dancing, getting the Sims happier.
So those are some of the things we'll start to see as that starts to, almost like a virus, spread out through the vascular system of the city. I mean, if we think of the streets as like the vascular system, that's going to start to spread out through the city then, correct?
Exactly. All these little agents, all these little Sims, these figures, they're actively out there wandering through the city, having an effect. As I go through, as a player, I start kind of building out towards these end cases with these really unique, very focused societies. And then I end up with situations where, hey, I want to build Berlin. I want to try and combine this capitalist Western society with this, communist state and see, can I manage it? Can these two things interact? Am I going to really have to have a wall between them to separate the interactions of people or not? What can you do with that? Can I get a city going where there are clowns out on the street? And
we're
have
trying
some
right
state
here.
police,
We may have clowns walking around the industrial tenements here at any moment, hopefully.
Hopefully they won't get too sick.
Because that also factors in. Now,
That also
these being an
factors
industrial area, each of those buildings have then environmental hazards.
Right. Everything has a lot of subtle effects on the city. So in this case with the industrial, it's pollution. And there's also even different kinds of pollution. You've got some like carbon emissions, global warming effects going on, which will increases the rate of disasters, floods, tornadoes. It makes the city warmer. And all that feeds back into the pure visual aspects of the city, which are very satisfying, but also into the direct health effects. And as the robber baron, I might not even care about those direct health effects. I might say, screw my citizens, let some of them die. Other people will show up eventually, I'm sure. It doesn't really matter to me, as long as I'm getting my money and they're working hard enough.
We're having some effect on this robber baron land. We're stamping out your evil ways.
It's getting a little nice, bright, and happy, but it's also a little polluted too.
I will point out that for the purpose of this demo, it's worth noting that the effects will be far more subtle.
Right, we've exaggerated the transitions to show them off. So this would be, I noticed the name of it is Lollipop, so this is the Happy Town.
This is a happy place.
Right.
Which, one of the things I thought was very interesting that you pointed out to us is this, although it looks quite large, it only has 74 inhabitants in it.
Right, and that's a choice that as the player, I'm making. I can make this huge, sprawling city, but if there's only 2 people living in each little garden that's covering several acres, my population may not be that high. But I may be generating huge amounts of creativity or devotion, and that in and of itself is a different kind of goal and will lead me into very different places. It visually can be just as impressive, and the city and the intricacies of the city and what's going on with them are just as dynamic as in the big sprawling megalopolis, but I'm going to have 1/10 the number of people. I'm kind of building, to some extent, you might be saying building a green city. I'm not relying on industry and power. But on the other hand, I could build a green city that relies on wind farms and has tons of electricity and power, but isn't polluted. And maybe in that city, I'm putting down the most advanced hospitals and genetics labs and improving the health of my citizens to the level where they're all immortal and super happy. And I'm driving down kind of the ultra tech version of the city, which then may end up again with these huge towers, but they're very spread out and could end up with a low population or a high, or maybe everyone's sent their personalities into the computers.
So do you have a lot of that sort of gene splicing then that's available to the player of dropping it, like you said here, we dropped a high-tech building into a very creative society, and that resulted in this sort of output. Do you have lots of that sort of splicing?
Exactly. Those number of combinations between different kind of archetypal cultures are almost infinite. For instance, in this society, you can see off in the distance, there's even we have the beginnings of what you might call a haunted culture. We've got some creepy town going on, the abandoned shack, the graveyard, the old mansion.
I call it the Scooby-Doo shot at night when these get us all.
They're generating fog and smoke, and eventually there's going to be some zombies wandering out of there. If he wants to cause the zombie apocalypse, enough buildings, you can do that, and then your citizens are only going to go to work at night.
Lots of options.
Infinite options and combinations.
And it's the kind of thing that is just, it's a lot of fun to develop on. Often you're involved in a game where, it's particularly a city building game, where you really want to do something, but you're restricted. You just can't, if you do that, there's 12 gears that are going to fall apart and you can't do it. And this, it's really kind of like, okay, hey, we got a good idea for a new interaction, let's do it. And so it's fun, and we've got just a whole big bucket of things that we'd like to get in there and continue to do it. And depending on how people play and which societies they tend to go for, and how much conflict they want, or how much they want that to really push back, should criminals burn down buildings, and all of these types of things. It's really making for a very rewarding product to work on, as well as players to work.
Well, I know after playing with it and watching this demo that I'm not going to be the only person who's looking forward to seeing what kind of evil combinations and maybe nice combinations I can come up with to twist and mold society.
Absolutely.
Thanks for the demo, guys. We appreciate it.
Our pleasure, Val.